Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Sean from Voices from the Dirt Road. I'm so excited to see you. I know last week we had this little situation where I was out of town, so we had to record everything. This week we actually got a guest, but that guest could not make it this morning, so we recorded everything yesterday. So in this episode, I'm starting off with a purple shirt on, and I think when you get to the interview, I think I had on a black shirt or something yesterday. So don't say, wait a minute, why is Sean changing clothes in the middle of the show? It was This is live. Later on in the show, it's going to be recorded. Hey, I think we all know throughout the entire country, but specifically here in Georgia, the governor came up on the net a few days ago and basically said, hey, get yourself prepared for an ice storm. You know, all I can tell you is this is from an agriculture point of view, I think all of us know, look, it's better to be prepared than to get caught out there and things are going wrong on your farm. Yesterday, I spent the most of the day out in the rain putting out additional hay for my cows because I wanted to make sure that we were ready because I'm still, like probably many of you, I'm still in the middle of calving season. And if it be my luck, when the ice storm actually starts on Saturday, that is when we'll have the rest of our calves. And I'd rather be out there taking care of that than trying to get some hay out or break some water that has been freezing or all those kind of things. So I just say to you, do all your preps. Make sure you got your farms ready. Make sure you got your families protected. Just last night here at our house, we actually, the propane guys came to our house last night at 10 o'clock. You say 10 o'clock. Yes, I got to give a shout out to those guys because they wanted to make sure that everybody here in Polk County, where I live, had propane and they had too many orders. So they just ran all night and came to our houses. So I want to give those guys a big shout out and thank them for supporting us and supporting everybody in the community. So with that, let's play that first little clip of me putting out hay yesterday, making sure the cows out here getting ready for this ice storm, putting out additional hay. Cows are looking good. We just put in this cross fencing, so we're working, but we're just trying to make preparations for when the weather gets, it's raining now, but when the weather gets here on Saturday, that they'll be good to go. They have extra bales out here. Right now, what I'm doing is getting these little calves into the other pasture. So hopefully this doesn't turn into an adventure. I got TT with 3 other calves, so hopefully they'll go on and follow her. They're growing fast. Looks like it's going to be a good day. Perfect. Like I said, we just put in our cross fencing. So this pasture is now 2. Water is protected. They can drink it on both sides. Got a gate, so. Well, as you can see there, we've been doing some work on the farm. I'm proud of that. We're trying to make sure that our farm is as efficient as possible. We're doing regenerative agriculture, making sure that we can constantly keep rotating the cows around. And as you can see, we got a lot of calves hitting the ground. And yes, we have even more. But like I said earlier, the farmers, y'all guys know what you're doing. I'm just putting it out there. Spend the day getting everything ready. What I've been told or what I saw earlier this morning on the Atlanta news is that at least here in the northern part of the state, northwest part of the state, we should start seeing ice or really bad weather Saturday afternoon going on into Sunday and maybe into Monday. A lot of the universities, a lot of schools are also doing preparation. So I just say make sure you're ready and be safe out there. All right, so let's move back to the stool. And I explain that like normal, and then we'll jump right into the show. All right, y'all guys know that we always talk about the stool that we have. This show is focused on farmers, on rural communities, on everyday farm life out there. And in addition to that, we try to stay inside of these particular pillars of life, livestock, row crops, forestry, and then we always come back to the USDA because many of our programs are tied back to the USDA, and then overarching is the Farm Bill, and we still got a lot of work to do on the Farm Bill. But the reason why I'm coming back to it this morning is because I actually had a great interview, and that person talked about chestnuts. I'm going to say this again later on in the show, but I wasn't 100% sure where's chestnuts on our, is it row crop? Is it forestry? What is it? Because I definitely know it's not livestock. So as we move through our show, I'm going to bring that back up again right before the interview. But again, everything about this show is focused on rural America, focused on our farmers, focused on any kind of structure that supports the farming community or rural America. So with that, let me jump right on into our very first video. This week, Secretary Rollins came out and told us as Americans across the board that you can actually feed yourself a meal for $3. So let's let her say that, and then I'll talk a little bit more on the back end.
I think the question you're asking, and it's a really important one, is while we're asking Americans to reconsider what they're eating, are we actually asking Americans, especially those who are living on the margins, are we asking them to spend more on their diet? And the answer to that is no. We've run over 1,000 simulations. It can cost around $3 a meal for a piece of chicken, a piece of broccoli, corn tortilla, and one other thing. And so there is a way to do this that actually will save the average American consumer money.
You've done the analysis on that, because that's one of the criticisms I heard from some nutrition folks who said, like with the event you mentioned, all the protein, saying, all right, well, steak obviously it's expensive. So are you asking people to spend more money with these new dietary guidelines than in the past? Do you say no?
That's right. And the answer to that is absolutely no. Now, there are, as most things are coming down, there are a few outliers. Beef has been one of them, but ground beef is coming down. But here's the real.
Can you bring me back up? Did we just lose the connection? Okay, looked like we had a little bit of a gremlin there, but can everybody hear me still? My team at the bottom, can you give me a thumbs up? Can you hear me? All right, we're going to keep on moving. As you can see there, the piece that blew my mind this past week was this, is that personally, I don't know where you can go and purchase a meal for $3. I don't know where that's at. I try to eat pretty healthy myself, but when I go to Chick-fil-A or some restaurant, I can't find anything that's just one meal, and I'm talking healthy. I can't find one meal that costs less than $10 to $12. So I'm not 100% sure how they're coming up with that particular price. I know I saw the further information. I think many of you also saw it, where it had one piece of chicken, one piece of broccoli, and like a tortito or something. I'm just not sure how that's mapping out there. Plus, the other thing that the secretary came back and talked about later on in the week, she doubled down and said that you can actually feed your family for $15 a day. I think Secretary, with respect, I think she needs to come out of DC, come out here to the real world, because yesterday when I was in Walmart, what everybody was buying, preparing for this ice storm that we're having, the shelves were empty. All the bread was gone. People were buying milk, and I assure you, just the bread and milk was way more than $3 in itself, and probably pushing close to 15 or more. So that's where we're at. So let's talk about what is going on right now out there in the world of agriculture. We have a very nice NPR video that will kind of give us a real good synopsis of what's going on out in the world of agriculture. Can you play that, Shelley?
President Trump announced a $12 billion plan to help farmers across the country. Speaking from the White House, he praised the plan as an example of how his administration is making agriculture a priority compared to the way it was during the Biden administration.
They hated the farmer. I love the farmer.
Well, but at the same time that farmers are struggling with the financial consequences of Trump's tariffs, they're also facing more expensive health care. Drew Hawkins with Gulf States Newsroom spoke to some farmers in Louisiana about their concerns over these rising costs, and he joins us now. Hi, Drew.
Hi, Elsa.
Hi. Okay, so tell us what you're hearing from some of these farmers.
Sure thing. So just today, I spoke with a farmer named James Davis. He's a third-generation row crop farmer in northeast Louisiana. And actually, that region was represented at President Trump's roundtable today with a rice farmer sitting right next to him. Davis grows cotton, corn, and soybeans. And he says farmers have been hit really hard this year. He says the Trump administration's tariffs mean they can't export their commodities because other countries have also placed retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods. So they can't sell them and make back enough money. And that means it can also make it harder to get crop loans the next year.
Well, how did Davis respond to the announcement today?
Well, Davis said that the Trump administration's tariff relief plan is really crucial.
It is hard to make crop loans work on paper. So it's imperative and very imperative that the Trump administration get these payments out as soon as possible.
And Davis says that without what the president did today, which he described as a bailout, many farmers are going to go belly up, is how he put it. They won't be able to continue farming. And that includes himself, he's been doing this for generations.
Well, these people that you spoke to across Louisiana, these farmers, I understand that they all expressed concern over rising healthcare costs, specifically the enhanced premium tax credits, right? Like that's the extra help to buy Obamacare health insurance that's expiring at the end of this month. What did you hear about that particular piece of all this?
Right. So for Davis, who describes himself as a moderate Democrat, he says that those are also crucial because many farmers have been struggling to make ends meet this year. It also means that paying for health insurance is harder, right? And I also spoke to Daniel Rhodes. He runs a small landscaping business near West Monroe, Louisiana, which is in House Speaker Mike Johnson's district. Now, Rhodes is a Republican, and he says he supports Speaker Johnson's leadership, except when it comes to health care and the ACA subsidies.
This was a big one that I really just took the opposite side of the fence and said, like, look, this is a crazy hill to die on to say we're going to lock up the budget over healthcare subsidies. Like, man, pick any other thing.
And you heard Rhodes mention, pick any other thing, right? He said he'd rather see cuts to military spending or other large-scale government spending, not healthcare.
Well, then what would the people you spoke to say they would like Congress to do when it comes to health insurance costs?
So in general, the people I talked to, what they want is they want Congress to stop playing politics, is how they put it. Speaker Johnson's district is very rural, lots of poverty, and a lot of people will be impacted if these subsidies go away without some sort of plan. And I think maybe the best way I can sum it up is a conversation I had with Susie Halley this past weekend. She's a Republican, she supports President Trump, and she runs a food bank in a place called Farmerville in Union Parish, which is in House Speaker Mike Johnson's district. And I asked her if she had a message for Speaker Johnson, and what she said was to fix it. She says people are already struggling to pay health insurance premiums already right now. So if the subsidies go away, it'll only make it even harder for them.
That is Drew Hawkins from Gulf States Newsroom in New Orleans. Thank you so much, Drew.
Well, as you can see, there is a lot of frustration across the United States when it comes to the subsidy that should be coming. In addition to that, healthcare. So right now, we kind of like in a wait and see. What is Washington D.C. going to do for us? What is the USDA going to do? And to bring it back home here to Georgia. Y'all can't, most of y'all guys know I'm originally born and raised in Southwest Georgia. And I wanted to play you a very short video, but I thought it was very significant because it's a farmer from South Georgia that's talking about, hey, if we don't get some money here soon, many farmers are going to go bankrupt. And that's my concern right now. Everybody's feel like the paperwork. We're hoping and praying that payments are going to come out in a timely manner. But on the flip side of the coin is also if the banks are going to give you that extra time so they can get your paperwork in and get things approved. So with that, let's play our farmer from South Georgia and see what he has to say real quick.
Trump says, you know, be patient. The farmer's going to be better than ever. Well, you better hurry up because we can't stand this much.
That was Franz Roland, a farmer here in southern Georgia. He's been farming for more than 40 years, but he said the last year has been one of the most difficult ever.
With the prices like they are today, we're not going to make any money. We just try to figure out a way to not lose so much.
He doesn't blame President Trump for the economic challenges he's facing, but he said the Trump administration hasn't helped farmers either.
We've lost our market share, our trade to China. I don't know who dropped the ball in Washington to allow these prices, its trade to diminish like it has, but somebody dropped the ball. Somebody wasn't looking out for us. But they got to get this trade back, or we all going to be doomed out here.
But many voters we talked to in Baldwin County, which President Trump won for the first time in 2024, like what they see from his first year in office.
Looking at where my 401k is, I'm going to give it an A. Overall, I think he is working towards the goals and the commitments that he made.
I'm tired of the United States getting pushed around, and I'm glad he's standing up.
He's trying to do everything. Sometimes he tries to do a little bit too much, but I'm happy with him.
Yeah, that's a consensus that I'm constantly hearing out there, is that farmers are getting a little concerned that if we don't get these payments soon, they're going to have to go belly up. They're going to go bankrupt. The banks are not going to keep funding them for the next year. And oh, by the way, we know all of these input prices are going through the roof. I'm happy to say that Secretary Rollins gave us an update this week. What I'm tracking is she's going to still be talking about the end of February, but I'm tracking some information. We'll verify it for next week, but I'm tracking that farmers may start seeing some payments in the early part of February, but I don't want to get out in front of them until we actually have the facts. But let's go on and play Secretary Rollins. She's giving us an update on the FBA.
Farmer relief plan. Just wanted to check in to see sort of how that rollout of relief is going, and if there's any plans to do a second round, or is that something that's being considered? What's the current standing?
Yeah, thank you for that. The $12 billion Farmer Bridge Assistance Program we announced on December the 8th with the president in the cabinet room. We immediately identified 11 of that $12 billion for our row crop farmers. There's a lot of distress in farm country, but arguably those who are facing the most are our row croppers, as we've talked about here many, many times. So that $11 billion was identified. The actual formulas were released on December 31st, and the money will move by February 28th. So the farmers know what they're going to be getting, and they can plan on it. They can take the letter to their bank as they're working to get financing for this year's harvest. All very, very important. We set $1 billion aside for the specialty crops. I was just in California on Monday in a strawberry field talking to some apple farmers, and we spend a lot of time focused on our row croppers. My family background is row cropping, but a lot of this country, and especially a lot of our smaller farmers in the Northeast along the West Coast, are specialty crop farmers. And so that $1 billion has been carved out, and we're working through that right now. We'll have more announcements on that. Thank you, everybody, so much. Y'all have.
Yeah, as you can see there, Secretary Rollins, she's still trying to get the word out there. A couple of things that has happened. Farmers have actually put in their paperwork. That should be being processed. My concern is, if you remember, we did some couple episodes back, where in the African American community, one set of people were saying fill out the paperwork, somebody else was saying not to fill out the paperwork. I'm concerned that all the farmers that wanted to get their paperwork in, get it in on time, and then if and when this payment come out, will those individuals also receive it? So we'll be monitoring that here in the next couple of weeks. We'll put together some episodes that will focus directly on those type farmers out there. But like I said earlier, I think here in the next couple of weeks, if I understand how our government actually works, it's better to say we want to do something at the end of February, but then actually come back and do something in the middle or early part of February. So I think we're going to get some kind of announcement here real soon that money's coming in a lot faster than was expected. And I think rural America needs it, our farmer need it, and kind of go from there. So let me go back to the stool, because now we're about to move into our guests. This show is going to be one of those shows that you heard what Secretary Rollins talked about, specialty farmers. Today we will be talking to a specialty farmer, and I'll get to that in a second. But the reason why I want to talk about the stool again is because I need y'all guys' help. You know, I was born and raised on a farm where we did row crop, peanuts, soybeans, cotton, and then we also had cows. So we had two of those areas, livestock and row crop, and then on top of that, we were part of CRP program with our pine trees. So we kind of did it all on our farm when I was a kid. With that being said, when I was talking to Susan yesterday, and that's who we're going to be interviewing, and I asked you please to stick around and watch. It's a great episode, very good information. But when we was talking to Susan yesterday, I had to say to her, Susan, I'm not 100% sure, where does chestnut trees and all these other things, where do they fall into on my stool? My question to the audience is this. Do they fall in the forestry? Do they fall into something else? Or do my stool need another leg that covers those things? So I look forward to your feedback. Please let us know, and we'll talk about that in future shows. But I ask you to sit back. She's going to give us some very good information across the board. I think you're going to love this interview. When the interview is over, I'm going to come back live and I'll end the show and kind of go from there. So with that, team, let's play the interview with Susan from yesterday. And I'm going to let you tell us some things about yourself. You know, we're getting ready for ice storm out here in Georgia, kind of a little bit of craziness. But Susan, can you just kind of tell us about yourself, tell us about your farm, and then we'll get into some other questions.
I am honored to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. We're up here in Iowa, and we're looking at sub-zero weather for the next few days. So we're hunkering down, probably like you guys are. Mm-hmm. But we grow here on our 75 acres, Asian pear trees, chestnuts, serviceberries, haskap, which are also called honeyberries, which are kind of elongated blueberries. They're a high-value specialty crop, and heart nuts, which are Japanese walnuts.
Wow. And when these fruit trees, or I guess they're all fruit trees.
Fruit and nut trees, yeah.
You tell I'm from Georgia. I know peanuts, I know soybeans, I know cotton, and I know cattle. That's what I know. And I do know Georgia, we got a whole bunch of peach trees, but that's in a different part of the state for me. So these products that you're actually growing, where do you sell the product, or do people come to your farm and pick it?
Yeah, I wish I could have them come pick, but for complicated reasons I can't. But we are selling direct to consumer right now, only because our trees have not reached their maximum production yet. But the truth is that we're counting on relying on food hubs, which were largely developed during the Biden administration, where millions and millions of dollars came into this state and others to help rebuild our local and regional food systems. And so these food hubs are like aggregators. I can sell to one place. I can sell to a place 30 miles from here, mm-hmm. and they will distribute it to everyone who needs it. Schools and businesses and government buildings, wherever they have contracts with. But the food stays local and fresh, and it helps build the local economy. And our nuts, chestnuts actually, can go to a wholesaler about an hour from here. So as soon as I have, 500 pounds of chestnuts or so, I'll be taking them to him, and and it's almost a cooperative. It's an LLC, but it acts like a cooperative, and so we get a good price for it, and then he distributes those chestnuts around the country.
Yeah. So to make sure I understand, our audience also understands when we talk about chestnuts, it almost also sounds like here in Georgia, our farmers that actually produce the pecan. Pecans.
Yeah, exactly.
Pecans,
Right.
pecans. And how they pick them and then they sell them to somebody else, and then that particular person or that organization gets them to wherever they need to go in the United States, around the world. Just for people to know, are you actually out there picking them by hand, or do y'all have a machine that picks the chestnuts?
We're still picking by hand here. Chestnuts fall, which is nice.
Oh.
So our big challenge here is to get them before the deer do. So we got to go out 2-3 times a day during the fall season, chestnut fall season, and get them out of these really stickery kind of burrs. They're very painful burrs. So you got to pick them up with leather gloves.
Wow. Well,
yeah.
I tell you, right now we're filming this, and everybody would know it here come Friday, but we're taping this in advance. So I would tell you that when it comes out on Friday, I'm going to make sure that we have a picture of a chestnut tree, because to be honest with you, my degree is agricultural business from Tuskegee University, and I'm here to tell you, if somebody showed me a chestnut tree, I'm not sure if I could pick it out. So I want to make sure that part of this show is to show everybody across the country how diverse agriculture is, and how many different ways that you can actually be in agriculture and also still be considered a farmer.
That's
still
right.
be considered a producer, because everything that you just said that you're doing on your farm, I think if we came to Georgia, people would be looking at you like, wait a minute, she's not producing chickens, she's not producing eggs, she's not producing beef or milk, she's not growing peanuts or soybeans or any of those things, then is she really a farmer? Then yes, the answer is yes. And because you mentioned that you're selling your stuff locally, I would love to have a conversation with you when we talk about the difference between a commodity farmer versus somebody that's local and regional, putting their food out that way.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so what we're looking at is we're still growing food that people eat, and they're called high value specialty crops for a reason. Mm-hmm. Not everybody knows what an Asian pear is, but I'll tell you, they'll pay $3 for one or $4 for one, which is better than you're going to get in the grocery store.
Right.
And chestnuts are a $6 billion a year market importing in the United States. So somebody's eating them here. So as an agribusiness guy, you'd appreciate I saw that look on your face. It's like, whoa, there's some money there, right?
Yeah.
And Eastern Europeans, Mediterranean folks, all kinds of immigrants besides Northern Europeans, which are still the majority here in Iowa, they're eating them up. I mean, there's a farm here not far from here that's kind of the grandmother and grandfather of chestnut production in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. And they're making $15,000 to $20,000 per acre per year on their chestnuts.
Wow.
Okay, because they've got a U-pick operation and their chestnuts are mature. And we call them the legendary Bosnians, but there's a whole community of Bosnians that travel down 2 hours to this farm, and the families just set up shop from grandmothers to grandkids in these orchards, and they pick chestnuts all day, and they have a good time. So the opportunities are there. As for Asian pears, like I said, I picked them because they're a long shelf life. Mm-hmm. They're high priced, they're high value, and they're relatively pest free because they're Asian pears. So the native plant people, are not my biggest, they're not the biggest fans of what I'm doing here because they're not native.
Right.
But honestly, because they're not native, the bugs aren't here with them. So I can grow them in a natural organic style, and have fewer inputs, and I can have a very high profit margin. And like I said, commodity farmers, they're on this treadmill. They're controlled by a market they never see, that they have they have no control over, government policy or the markets. Their stuff goes overseas. Their machines, they don't even have control over their machinery anymore, because the software that runs it is owned by John Deere, and they won't give them a right to repair that machinery by taking it anywhere else. If they're growing pigs or chickens, I know what you guys are doing down there. You're not controlling your feed. You're not controlling the vet who comes out. You're not controlling where they're sold. You're basically a wage worker being called a farmer for some nostalgic reason, right?
Yeah. Input costs right now on the commodity farms or what we would consider a farm down here in Georgia are out the roof. You're exactly right. Right now, our row crop farmers that specifically soybean. With that being said, you know, the current administration is trying to move more people into feeding, going back to the old thing that we used to say, feeding America. I'm not 100% when we say feeding America. Most farmers are more on the side of feeding the world. And that's how you get into this commodity side of it. So is the new administration is trying to push us into feeding locally, feeding America. Can we talk a little bit about what systems do we have in place? Because what I see is the farmers market, but I don't see hundreds and thousands of people coming to the farmers market. I don't see where we have, like you kind of mentioned that in Iowa, y'all guys have some systems in place. But I know for myself, if I was going to sell some beef directly from the farm to the consumer, I will run into a problem trying to find a facility or a processing facility that is close, that has USDA inspections happening, so that I can actually sell the product. So really, the easier path for me, and farmers are like running water. We take the easier path. The easier path is just to sell your cow directly to the sale barn and let it go somewhere else, not to Texas or wherever it goes, and then it ends up in somebody's grocery store. So can you expand for us and talk a little bit about what y'all guys are doing out there in Iowa on how you sell your products, but it stays locally? What are those systems?
Sure. And I don't think it's just Iowa. And, it cracks me up to hear that the current administration wants us to feed America when they're destroying all the systems that have been put in place in the last 4 to 10 years that were boosting and rebuilding. And we had to rebuild our local food system, right? 50 years ago, farmers sold to each other, to their neighbors, right? We had farm to market roads. You could drive to your market, and now your only market is to sell at the national or international level. So rebuilding the local food system took millions, perhaps billions of dollars, and that meant pouring money into these food hubs, like I told you, these aggregators, which are kind of like a warehouse where I can just sell my Asian pears, or someone else can just sell their tomatoes, but they might package them in a different way as a group of things to a different customer. So that was one thing. And those are nonprofit food hubs. So there's also for-profit food hubs. Okay. Other folks, individual entrepreneurs, found federal money to help them start a business distributing, because our biggest problem was procurement and distribution. It wasn't growing.
Okay.
But these individual, especially young farmers, were learning how to grow 40 different kinds of crops, like vegetables. They had to become an expert in each one of those. Then they had to become experts in marketing and website design and social media. And then they had to become experts in how to deliver stuff efficiently. I mean, that's an awful lot to ask from one farmer. Yeah. But as I kept saying, I was on the NAACP small business committee for many years here in Iowa. I kept saying, guys, there's business opportunities here. You know, a guy could buy a truck and be distributing all this food, you know, and it would be his own business. Or someone could go into graphic design and reach out to these farmers, you know, and learn how to, you know, help them with their marketing. So oftentimes, by the way, ag economists like to say that local food farming is labor intensive. But when they're talking about just about anything else, they talk about it as job creating. Well, what the heck? You know, which one is it? You know, it's actually creating jobs because local food farmers are, and the science is in on this, the economics is in on this. We recirculate our funds in the community.
Yes.
Commodity food farmers are sending all their money to the banks, all on the international market. You know, they're sending our federal dollars that just got them off the hook for our current administration's policies through their bank accounts to, you know, international money and international finance to pay off whatever debts they owed. I mean, none of that economy affects local people. And every time we lose another farmer around here, you know, it's sucking, or another farmer goes big, you know, which most of them have. It's just sucking the money. It's sucking the resources out of the ground. It's sucking the quality out of our water, and it's taking it elsewhere for profit. And that makes us feel like, you know, the dumping ground for America.
Yeah,
Really.
you know, I'm glad you brought up the debt that's actually out there. You know, I will say every farmer, you know, some farmers picked what they wanted to do 100+ years ago. And as the farm goes down that path, it's hard to turn it in a different direction. I know personally, I grew up on a farm in Southwest Georgia. We grew peanuts, soybeans, cotton, but we were mainly row crop. We did have some cows. Those cows were strictly, if we got caught in a bad situation, we always sell a cow and pay a bill. But I was the son that loved working with the animals. And that's why today on my personal farm, I raise cattle. And I do it in a regenerative type way. But I will tell you, when I look back at farms that I grew up on, but then also farms of today that are dealing with row crop and even any type farm, the debt limit or the debt that the farmer is carrying is out the roof, especially right now with input costs, fertilizer, equipment, you name it. But I want to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about this and get your thoughts on it. Is right now we have we talked about community farmers. That's the lane that I really know. Things are being sold overseas. The individual farmer is still selling it in their hometown, small town. I will also say it is a lot of money that farmer is still investing back in the small town. However, that investment is still going to John Deere. That investment is still going to the feed company. It's just not the big John Deere. It's the little John Deere company that's getting the money. So with that being said, how do you see a new farmer or a current farmer surviving the debt limit that we're in today? Because what I see is a farmer goes out and get a farm loan from the bank. That farm loan is then he buys all his products, does everything, plant the crops, pray to God that his crops are going to come up, pray to God that we don't have a bad storm, ice storm like we're about to have here in Georgia and all those kind of things. And then they sell it. But if they don't end up having a place to sell it overseas, ultimately, like China or something, then for all practical purposes, that crop could be lost. Or if, for instance, soybeans, we'll use soybeans for example. Brazil right now crop is coming in. So that simply means that now the United States farmer has competition, and Brazil's soybeans are cheaper than ours. Supply and demand. So in your opinion, how does the farmer today survive this debt ceiling, or are they on a treadmill where they're never going to get off of it, and the farmer today is kind of like back in the day, is more of a sharecropper than actually a farmer. I'll pass it back to you.
Well, that was loaded. First, I want to tell you we're at the home of John Deere, and there's no little John Deere around here. Okay, so I don't know what planet you're on, but it's all going to the same place, and they're doing fine over there at John Deere. Okay, in fact, I just wrote this story for Barn Raiser about robotics. John Deere plans to go 100% robotics in about 5 years.
I know.
So wake up and smell the roses, folks. If you've been riding in your cab watching the game, there ain't going to be no cab. Not gonna be okay.
I have seen a lot of I have seen a lot of those new John Deere tractors that are leased to those loans that nobody's actually in them at all, and that's great technology. But again, you can't fix that thing when it breaks.
No, it's going to be a more and more consolidated. Who can even afford those things? Much less who can afford to fix them. But in terms of the debt, choices, farmers make choices from the choices they have. I'm on the Farmers Union board here in Iowa, so I am not judgmental about commodity farmers. I am judgmental about a system that rakes them over the coals every year and then makes them look noble standing in front of a combine so they can sell more combines. That I find disgusting because they're struggling. We have mental health issues up here, as we do on farmers all across the country right now, very high suicide rates. We've got more and more consolidation. We've got corporations buying up land here in the name of family farm LLCs. They're pretending that they're family farms, but they're not, because we have an anti-corporate farm ownership law here, so they're getting around it. I think that there's one answer that solves an awful lot of problems, but it's not an easy answer, and the answer is diversity.
Okay.
Diversity works. It makes our world stronger. It makes our government stronger, it makes our community stronger, and it makes our farm stronger. When we have when I'm growing 5 different kinds of crops, then the bug gets to 1, I still got 4 others. Right. Like you said, you were a row crop farmer, but you always had the cattle to fall back on.
Yes.
Right. And of course, and families of old, the mom was out there usually with the kids growing the garden. Well, that's all kinds of expenses that farm families have now that they didn't have before because they were feeding themselves.
Yes.
So let's, and by the way, I get really tired with farmers saying, can you make a living at that? Because they never have. Okay. They always had a winter job fixing machines or driving a truck, and their wives usually had a job in town that paid for the health insurance and got the kids clothed. So let's be honest about whether farming is something you make a living at or you make a revenue from. And I'd like to see the farmers make more of a revenue, but we need them to diversify, even if it's an acre or 2 at a time. Now, right now, farmers are averaging over 58 years old. So, and I know a lot of them are in their 70s and 80s and haven't let go yet. It's time for them to give the next generation, the next 2 generations, a chance to try something new on a few acres, just a few acres out of 300, 500, 6,000, whatever they're farming, to see if they can make a go of it. Because I'm telling you, there's money. We import 90% of the food to Iowa. 90% of our food is imported. So as an agribusiness man, you tell me, are people still eating? Will they pay for food?
Yes. Yes.
And can I argue that if my food is more local and just picked off the tree, it's actually higher in nutrition? I can, because the science is out there. Yes. It's got more vitamins. It's healthier for you. It's better for you. And when you pay me my $15 for 5 pairs, I'm going to spend it right here in the community. And it's probably going to stay here. So that diversity of agriculture is what we need. But these poor men, mostly men, are being driven like your cattle, onto this future of more corn, more soybeans, more debt. And they're the ones getting burned by it all. Nobody else is losing money. Monsanto, Bayer, Cargill, JBS, they're not hurting. All their stockholders are doing great. The only people hurting are the ones right here on the ground. And that system's got to change. And that's all I can say about that is take an acre or 2 and start giving the next generation a chance. And you'll start seeing the money rolling in, and you'll have that backup plan you need when the bailouts don't come.
Yeah. It's a lot of concern right now if the bailouts or subsidies or whatever you want to call them, are they actually going to come? We talked about on the show a few weeks ago, all the farmers had to get their acres into the NRCS office or the FSA office to ensure that hopefully in February they would get some kind of funding so they can potentially farm next year. We just had a situation here in Georgia where a major farm in Southwest Georgia was on the national news, and he basically said, "Look, it's time to stop talking about it. If we don't receive something, we're all going bankrupt." And I also want to agree with what you said. Many a times on the farm, what people maybe that live in the city don't understand is everybody also worked off the farm. Maybe it wasn't the highest paying job that you could ever have, but many a times that job actually came with insurance. And right now, an issue that is really affecting the farmers right now is the ACA, the healthcare. They in a tight now. Healthcare is going out the roof, so that's another input. But at the same time, they don't have the money to farm for next year because they're still waiting. And then on top of that, the bank is saying if you don't get something soon, we're gonna foreclose on you. So farmers are right now in a very stressful situation. We always make sure on this show that we talk to our farmers about getting help when it comes to suicide prevention, because as a veteran, more farmers are deciding to commit suicide than veterans, and veterans are 22 veterans per day. That's way one is too many. So one of the things I always like to say on every show, we know in the farming community right now across the board, it doesn't make any difference what type of farming that you're doing. It is very stressful right now. We talked about, I love what you talked about when you said, make sure that your farm is diversified. Like I mentioned, we raise cattle on this farm. But when you raise cattle, the cows have a calf every 9 months. So basically you got one paycheck coming. We on my personal farm, my wife and I and the kids are discussing what else should we do on this farm. And we actually looking at bringing on goats, because that is another income that could be coming in a little bit faster. So I love what you said about diversifying the farm. I love what you talked about when you mentioned that, hey, we should be selling our crops locally, because you sell your crops locally is fresher, but on top of that, it leaves the money in the community. Because right now, on the commodity side, it goes to a particular place, maybe 10, 15, 100 miles away from your house. And I'm not sure if that money ever comes back to your little hometown. And that's one of the things that we talk about on this show all the time, is making sure that small town America can survive. So, hey, I know we covered a lot. I look forward to talking to you again somewhere in the future, because we got a lot more issues that are going on out there. I wish you the best of luck. And I promise when we air this show on Friday, I'm going to show everybody a chestnut tree. I promise you that.
I'm going to send you pictures.
Yeah, please send me pictures, and we'll put those pictures up, because I think it's so important as just everyday people here in America, but also as farmers, to learn from each other, because everybody can't raise cows. Getting in the cattle business right now is very expensive. No ifs, ands, buts about it. You made it very clear. The average age of the farmer today is 58, 59 years old. That's the average age. But then on top of that, most farmers are right around in their 70s, and they're not willing to give it up. So that means that the next generation can't get into it. And just this morning, I saw on the news, or I read in the news somewhere, that now the average home buyer, when you and I were kids, we bought houses in our 20s. We didn't buy the biggest house, but we bought a house in our 20s. The average home buyer now is 40 years old before they can get their first house.
That's happening in my family.
So things are definitely changing. And if those things are changing just in generations, we need to figure out how can we keep people in agriculture, how can we help people get in agriculture, and how can we also help them make a living in agriculture? Because yes, we do need to be able to feed ourselves. So I'm going to let you close it out. please tell us again how people can get in touch with your farm, because they might want to buy some chestnuts all the way from Georgia, And if not those chestnuts, those pears, I forgot what country I was in. Oh, I do remember. I was stationed in Kosovo, so which right next door to Bosnia. So I have jumped over the mountain and went over to Bosnia and spent some time. And when you said chestnuts and said Bosnia, I remember being in meetings and the chestnuts were on the table.
Really?
I actually have had them. I had no clue they came off a tree. So, it was only till you said that I said, wait a minute, I have had these chestnuts and I was in Bosnia and they did taste great. And because we also had figs and grapes and all kind of things in those meetings. But again, if you can come up with a product that you can find a niche to sell it, people will come. And that's just a great example that you're doing on your farm. So I just want to say thanks. Is there anything else that you want to tell us how people can get in touch with you?
Oh, it's easy enough. Susan at dracohill.org. It's just SUZAN. But Sean, I just want to say, you said doing it right. I don't mean to put a judgment on it, but you're growing your cattle in a way that's earth friendly. And that's a sellable item to people who care. And so am I. I got roots in the ground year round. I'm not tilling out here on these steep hills. I actually have hills, even though it's in Iowa or Cedar Valley. and I don't till. And so my fruits and my nuts are saving the planet 1 acre at a time. And so are you. And there are customers out there who pay extra just for that. So, keep an open mind. Anyone who wants to grow food, just keep an open mind about who's out there who wants to buy it, because we don't start taking care of this planet, it's gone. Our kids are never going to be able to enjoy it. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you too. And have a great one. And please, I know we taping this early. Don't get up early on Friday, but you'll be able to see it on YouTube. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, guys. I think that was a very good show that gives you a lot of good information. But I would tell you, it was strange for me to sit here and watch the show. I was like, that's a little different. But at the end of the day, I think you got a lot of good information. I think we got a chance to talk about something that we normally don't talk about. And like I told Susan yesterday, I wanted to make sure before I close the show out this morning that we can show you what a chestnut tree looks like. So can we put up a chestnut tree? Do we have it? All right, there we go. And like I mentioned to Susan, that I actually had chestnuts when I was in Bosnia for some meetings I had to deal with, and that is the pears. So it's funny, I've actually had those pears too and didn't realize what I was actually having. So big shout out to Susan. Keep doing all the great work. And I also want to make sure that we bring on more farmers that actually work in the specialty crops, because I think that is also an area that we need to be talking about and getting that information out there. So again, this morning has been a little bit different on what I mean by different. We did a portion of it live. We did a portion of it recorded, and now we back to live. And let me just say this to you. Have a great day. The coffee cup is empty. See you next week.